to pay more for imported goods quite soon. Freight company Cargo Compass says that supply chain bottlenecks are getting even worse. The backlogs began with the COVID-19 pandemic and were expected to ease this year. But now the world is facing the consequences of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. For now, there's enough stock in the country. However, shelves could be impacted later on this year. To discuss this even further, we're joined by economic analyst, that's Professor Bonke Dumisa. Prof, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for making time for me this morning. Let's talk to South Africans about what lies ahead for them as consumers, particularly with this backlog that we keep reading about and hearing about with regards to supply chain.
Let me start by saying that South African consumers must not really panic over this whole issue about the trade bottlenecks. It happens under normal circumstances then that when there are global uncertainties caused by pandemics or even wars, then you have the supply and demand shifts, which may result in the shortages in some countries of certain things. And when there is shortage of a particular product, then the price really goes up. So what happened with COVID-19 over the past 2 years is that the supply of many goods that we normally demand and buy from overseas did go down in a way, and then there was also less demand for the freight services. So those who were there then pushed up the price. I mean, that's why you find then that between China and South Africa, the freight costs rose up as much as 500% from about $2,000 a container, then up to 14,000 US dollars per container. So what I am saying here is these things can be dealt with. Maybe this is the time for South Africa to start focusing on its import substitution strategy, because most of the goods then that we are buying from overseas are goods that we are adequately producing here in South Africa. Electronic goods, we are producing them in South Africa. Basic food products, why do we have to keep on more and more from overseas? Cooking oil, I hear everyone complaining about cooking oil. And then I ask the government of my house, I never hear you complaining about cooking oil. And she said, canola oil prices are very good. Yeah. So when the sunflower oil increases, then you can move to other types of cooking oils. So those are things then that we must focus on. Yes, there is a serious trade blockage because of this, because of the supply and demand thing that I was referring to. But let us not panic. Yes, if ever we still rely more on imported goods. I mean, why do we have to buy detergents in the United States? So if ever we focus on imports, then we'll have a problem. But if ever we can aggressively move on an import substitution thing, then this can be dealt with. Because if ever we focus on imports, then it will keep on going up. And then the inflation in South Africa will go up, as you've already said. And when the inflation then we are all really affected. Why do we have to buy more clothing from China and other countries when we've got a very good clothing and textile industry in South Africa?
Right, Prof. So the rule in broadcasting and journalism is that if you implicate anyone, we need to give them right of reply. So the government of your house is invited to give us a right of reply to that allegation about them panicking over canola oil, Professor. We need to give them...
She was not panicking. She was simply saying people are panicking for nothing.
And it's happening. It's so true. And that's on the commercial, on the consumer goods side, right? But what about commercial goods? I mean, if we look at commercial goods like computer chips, some electronics, just to name a few, what's that substitute strategy then? How does it look like for you, do you think?
When it comes to computer chips and such specialized and specialized machinery, then we do have a serious problem there, because unfortunately, it's not every country that can produce those things. We rely on China and the US in particular for those things. then in that case, yes, unfortunately, we'll have to bear the cost until all these things disappear. But for the other parts, other ordinary things like machinery and basic foodstuffs, really the import substitution strategy can work well. I am not oversimplifying this thing, but I'm saying we have a tendency in South Africa to exaggerate the panic button, how things are going to be bad, instead of saying, how can we find solutions to those things? It's time we focus on those positive solutions to challenges that we face. But yes, we will keep on seeing the prices going up. And when they go up, it is mostly the poorest of the poor who will be most affected by food inflation, etc.
Well, Prof, I appreciate your time this morning, and the word for me that stood out is import substitute strategy. That's my words, of course, for the day. I appreciate you speaking to us this morning, Professor Bonke Dumisa, taking us through, of course, the soaring prices we're seeing there, and consumer goods and commercial goods obviously being impacted, and obviously you and I and our pockets being impacted. But the question is, what do we do about it? That's what the Prof is saying: solutions, solutions, solutions. So, right.